Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 has definitely surprised a fair amount of people. While some think it's the perfect game in every way, others say that it won't ever live up to the expectations of the original Call of Duty series. Nevertheless, the game still includes some pretty awesome features, like quickscoping your enemies to your heart's content, or maybe using a riot shield to troll your enemies, making them hate every ounce of life. Or even camping in a corner with a 725 shotgun, just waiting for some unlucky soul to come strolling around the corner without a doubt in their mind that they are going to be your next victim. Now that's some top-notch gameplay, wouldn't you say? So while I was playing the campaign, I noticed that almost every couple of minutes, my screen would fill itself full of blood. This made me wonder what the journey would look like if you're not the average Call of Duty player, thus sprouting the question of, can you beat Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 without taking damage? But before we start, I have a few ground rules. I am not allowed to take damage of any kind from anything. The only exceptions are from mandatory and inescapable scenarios. So let's say I'm in a cutscene or a spot that the game requires I take damage in order to continue the story. That's allowed. And one last thing, just to clarify, unless I state otherwise, all of my challenges will be on the medium or regular difficulty, between the easiest and the hardest. Well, from now on at least. Now that that's out of the way, let's dive in. The first mission is Fog of War. Our goal is to infiltrate a Russian base and investigate this kind of gas that we propose they are trying to use against us. The intro to the game is fairly straightforward, especially since half of the mission is stealth-based, but as long as you listen to your teammates' callouts, you should be fine. We then made our presence known by calling in an airstrike on the fortress to weaken our enemy. Making our way through the entrance, we put those poor devils out of their misery. We then encountered our first real challenge. We sent out the rookie to check if the next area was clear, but he was blown away by an MG that was ready to kill. The first real test of my ability was trying to know where the enemies were. One-on-ones were typically easy, but getting shot from an area in which you had no clue the enemy was is quite frustrating. The game plan for this run is to play simple, so patience, memorization, and simplicity are going to be your best friends if you don't want to take damage. I guess you could charge in with full force too, but that won't be as effective. But after going back to a checkpoint so many times, you start to remember each enemy and their positions, so it gives you an advantage. We then made it to a dark room, so we had to use our flashlights. Now this is what I call immersion. I only died a few times due to not seeing the bad guys, but once I memorized their positions, it was pretty easy to complete. The next room had the gas that we were looking for, and so I swabbed a sample of it before we left. We tried making our escape, but we were surprisingly ambushed. I was the only one who survived, and Fog of War was completed. Next, we have the mission, Piccadilly. This mission was definitely more challenging because there were civilians running around, like chickens with their heads cut off. There may have been a few times where I accidentally killed an innocent bystander or two, but that's not important. The goal was to stop all the terrorists in the city to save as many lives as possible. For the most part, they were easy to kill because I'm big and smart, while they were small and dumb. Only a few times did I encounter foes that proved to be troublesome, but once I learned their maneuvers, I was able to take them down. The next thing that I didn't seem to understand was that cars can definitely kill me. A certain vehicle was on the verge of exploding a couple times, but I couldn't seem to grasp that concept. I just really wanted the gun by the cars that were on fire. Once that was settled, a bad man tried to send me back to my last checkpoint, and it looked like he was going to, until he came to my aid. It was the beloved Captain Price. He was looking as ravishing as ever. The sexy man then led me to finish the mission by throwing an innocent man to his death, but the whole time he kept mumbling about his favorite kind of soap. It was really weird. I guess he just likes to stay fresh. Before the level ended, I got an achievement called Trigger Discipline, and one gets this achievement by not injuring any civilians in the level Piccadilly. Now let me tell you, I wasn't trying to hurt anyone that I didn't need to. It was completely by accident, and I didn't mean to. But it's okay because I still got 50 gamer score. The next mission was called Embedded, and this time I met up with some of my Middle Eastern friends. I was led by my comrade, Farah. Now, you remember the gas that we found in the first mission? Yeah, we're trying to find the creator of that toxic shit. His name is Barkov, and he's a little poo-poo head that nobody likes. We put on some cloth to cover our faces and immediately started doing slave labor. I just have such a passion for it. No, not really actually, because surprisingly, it kinda sucks. But Farah is kind of a baddie though. Bro, she absolutely destroys her enemies. I mean, it's pretty hot. Anyway, after I took out one of the guards, I then wanted to see if I could harm a civilian in this level and get away with it. I accidentally dropped a cinder block on a woman, so I had to go to the last checkpoint. Oops, I guess? Next, it was time to become a little more quiet, so I put an oil filter on my pistol. I then proceeded to watch Farah put this man on his ass. I can appreciate a strong female lead. We then coordinated an attack to take out a group of dummies that did not see us coming. In due time, we came across two helicopters that I needed to take out. The plan was to plant explosives on them, so I set out for the first one. But along the way, I got distracted and tried to throw my knife at this guard multiple times because I thought it would look cool. I gave it a few tries, but ultimately, it didn't look like it was going to work out for me, so I carried on. I found another oil filter, so this time, I put it on my shotgun. I was pretty excited at this point to blow these Russians away. I then carried a cinder block to blend in with their average 9-to-5 worker and blasted 2 guards until they were alive, no more. Making it to the top, I took out one guy with a throwing knife and destroyed the others with my pistol. The explosives were then planted. I made my way to the other helicopter, but before anything, I had to take out the guards, of course. So once they were dealt with, I planted that bad boy and dipped out of there. But could you imagine that I jumped off the building and took fall damage? Could you actually imagine something so stupid? But no matter, I just took a different route back to Farah. We then blew them sons of bitches up, and it was time to make our escape. We hid under some trucks, blended in with some other dead bodies, and rushed to the escape tunnel, thus completing the mission, embedded. And by the way, these quote-unquote stealthier missions are typically easier to do without taking damage, as long as you actually stay stealthy. That was just a quick PSA. For all the noobs, our next adventure was titled Proxy War, and I was working alongside Farah again, but this time she brought in the cavalry. Our goal was to infiltrate a Russian base in search of Barkov once more. We started the attack with explosions before we all charged their fortress with all our might. I really wanted to quickscope them with my Kar 98K, and it worked for a few shots, but they mostly took a shit on me and called me stupid. Lucky for me, I also had remote control airplanes with explosives on them that I could fire at will from any position. But unfortunately, I met my maker when I approached the next part of the level. There were guys camping at every angle you could think of. They were behind things, to the side of things, on top of things, and even under things. It was proving difficult to pass. I went back to my checkpoint quite a few times, but for your sake and mine, I'm not going to show every attempt.
I'll spare you this once.
But after attempting this part of the level numerous times, I memorized where every enemy should have and could have been hiding. We finished off those Russians and proceeded to move on with the level. The rest of the fighting didn't prove to be difficult in the slightest. I obtained an LMG and gunned down my opponents with ease, only restarting a few times. We eventually made it to the armory where we could check and see if Barkov's gas was being kept there. I used a Molotov to end the suffering of some unfortunate foes and did not find any gas in the hangar. I then defended myself with a Dragunov, sending my foes to the afterlife that they feared so much. I decided to finish them off with an attack helicopter that showed up just in time, and Proxy War was then completed. Now it was time for Clean House. It was another stealthy mission, so I'm sure you could guess I was excited, but probably not by my monotone voice. I infiltrated the building with a ladder that I kept in my pocket, and then I carefully took out the first few enemies. We equipped our night vision goggles and moved up the stairs. Our goal this time was to rid the world of any terrorists that were held up within this stronghold. I was lucky enough to be working with trained professionals. Little did they know, I'm actually quite skilled under pressure. Well, maybe not all the time, but after you do something over and over, you start to just know how to do it. We were also at an advantage during this operation because everyone that wasn't my team couldn't see shit since we cut the lights. I love unfair advantages more than anything. The rest of the time we spent in this house was just me killing helpless bad guys that didn't stand a chance against our night vision. So I guess you could say I was pretty happy. Once we finished off the last threat, we realized that we didn't find what we were looking for. Just a bunch of townfolk trying to protect themselves from a bunch of soldiers with weapons. Just kidding. But anyway, moving on. Hunting party was next. For this adventure, my team and I were tasked with seeking out a terrorist leader that called himself the Wolf. He's said to be very dangerous, so we needed to stop him. Our team made our way up the street, being guarded by a tank to help for cover fire. We eventually reached a hospital where our target was hiding. Sadly, our tank got destroyed, so we had to start moving into the building. The entrance was riddled with foes, so I had to play my moves carefully. Well, I mean, it took a few restarts, of course, but I gunned them down with every weapon that I could find. There were a few parts in this place that gave me some trouble. The next room I entered, I shot at the first thing that I saw with the assumption that it was an enemy, but it was just an injured civilian, so I guess I'll never learn my lesson of killing the innocent. My teammates then decided not to move out of the way of a live grenade, even though they knew it was there. Sometimes I just don't understand people's decisions. I then had to beat the bad guys to the draw of our weapon, and by that I just mean whoever saw the other first was basically going to get the kill. These CPUs are campers, man, it's pretty annoying. But anyway, I was able to gun down all those campers, and then a guy on a stretcher faked an injury trying to kill me, and then I finally made it to the Wolf's hideout. With a small tubular camera, I was able to see him and his henchmen in the other room, so I flanked around and immediately got killed by a booby trap. Okay, round 2. This time, I carefully disarmed the explosive, and I was able to hold down the Wolf before he was able to execute any of my men. And that's another mission for the books. The embassy was our next assignment. We were tasked with aiding the team that captured the Wolf in hopes to escape with him unharmed. harmed. After crash landing with my buddy Price, he looked at me with sexual intent. I told him he would have to wait until later, and if he was a good boy, I would bring some Irish Spring because I know how much he loves soap. The wolf's partner, by the name of the Butcher, arrived with his army of ugly and stupid soldiers to try and take their leader back. I witnessed this man kill innocent civilians, and I was absolutely pissed off. It was time to go try-hard mode. I was not going to take damage from anything. I was going to kill every last son of a bitch I saw. I killed these bastards left and right. So many of them fell to the barrel of my gun, dropping like flies almost. I loved every second of it. I killed the last remaining bitches near the bunker that our allies were staying in, and we finally regrouped. The bad part was we were trapped in that room unless someone with a special key card led us through the other side. Luckily, we had my homie Stacy. I had to safely guide her to our room to save us. This was really easy. Just time it right and she was able to pass through the areas without being seen. It was a piece of cake. I didn't mess up once. I was able to escort her and we were freed. A safe house was waiting for us for our hopeful rescue, but unfortunately there was no transportation in the area, so we had to hold out. We set up shop on the roof and started laying into the attackers with all of our might. It wasn't hard avoiding damage on this roof since we had the high ground. Obi-Wan would be proud. Hello? But unluckily for us, while we were distracted, those jerks blew through the wall of our building and stole the wolf from us. As much as it sucked, the level was still complete. Our next objective was called the Highway of Death. This mission only included me being perched up behind a wall with a sniper, picking off enemies until they got close enough to engage us in combat. I was able to take out a few of them before they got too close, so that was pretty sick. But this next part was pretty stupid. So at this point in the mission, you're supposed to leave the sniper's nest because a Molotov is being thrown at you, and you're supposed to quote-unquote take damage, I guess? So the game intends for you to be hit by a Molotov while in the sniper's nest, making you leave the sniper's nest. I played this from all angles. I was literally standing behind a wall with no one in sight when they yelled Molotov, and I still took damage. So it's just force damage that cannot be avoided, but luckily it doesn't count, solely for that reason. The next part of the level, Farah's little brother Hadir used Barkov's gas, and you can guess that it was a surprise to us. After it nearly killed us, he pulled us into the cave, and we survived. We then had to play a flashback, but it wasn't complicated at all. As young Farah, I killed a brute of a Russian, and then Hadir led us to our hopeful escape before we were captured by Barkov, thus completing the Highway of Death. The wolf's den is next. I had to follow an underground tunnel in search of the wolf. There were booby traps and enemies throughout these tunnels, but they proved to be no trouble at all. Farah was working with me as well, so it really wasn't that hard. She and I were able to kill many of these dudes, and then find the wolf. We burst inside, I put a slug straight in his skull, I cut a few colorful wires, and we disarmed the bomb. The wolf's den was finished. Another flashback mission was next. This one was short as well. This time I was a slightly older Farah that needed to escape a prison cell with her brother Hadir. After being harassed by Barkov, I threw a rock at a button and earned my freedom. I gathered my sisters, some weapons, and we started our escape. These foes proved to be quite trivial. Considering I'm a prisoner who has never used an AK-47 before is kind of embarrassing. I then killed some guards, I blew up a sniper's nest, and I then made it to a door where I had to take some force damage. It was unavoidable, I promise. As soon as you approach the door, the guy from the other side pretty much just bangs you, and boom. Damage. But at least Captain Price showed up to comfort me. The flashback was then finished. Our next mission was Old Comrades. Our intention was to capture the Butcher. Remember him? Hey, yeah, I do. And I'm still holding a grudge. We needed to get him alive, and not too hurt. We started chasing him through the city. And let me tell you one thing. My deagle shots were absolutely on point. I was hitting every goddamn shot that came out of that gun. I was pretty proud of myself, to be honest. But anyway, after running for a while, he got tired, and my homie rammed him with a truck. It was pretty fun to watch, not gonna lie to you. We scooped him up and brought him in for interrogation. I'm not going to show what happened next because I think it's a little gruesome. All I'll say is that we had something or someone that would make him talk. Once that was over, it was time to start the next part of our master plan. Going dark was the next mission. Now this was the ultimate stealth mission. If I had to describe it in one word, I would say awesome. But I'll save you the time. It's really easy to do without taking damage, but our goal was to find Hadir and bring him in. I killed 2 guys from above to start this thing. I then had to check 3 houses for Hadir. I used my stealthy tactics and killed the dudes in the first house, but only to find out that he wasn't there. It was just some poor soul. The next house was a little more difficult, but still proved to be quite easy. The man I found also was not Hadir, so it had to be the 3rd house. I then met up with Captain Price, I punched in some random numbers in a keypad, and we found Hadir. We forced him to come with us as we made our escape. I then encountered some unavoidable damage as I fell through the whole goddamn house as we were attacked by an attack helicopter. But it's okay, because we strategically made our way through the houses and found our way to the escape tunnel, and the mission was then complete. We finally made it to the last level. into the furnace. We needed to find Barkov and destroy his gas supply once and for all. I was given a sniper as we marched towards the facility. Besides being shot randomly from far away quite a few times, I was still able to handle myself and make my way to the establishment. When we made it to the front doors, I put on a gas mask and I brought a minigun that I found. The first thing I saw when I entered was a screen full of red because they were waiting for me. It was pretty great. I couldn't see anyone, so I had to take it slowly. The next room, as you can see, I'm killing everyone before they even have a chance to do anything. This is because I replayed this part many times, learning their positions as I did. Lovely, isn't it? My next encounter was one of the big boys, a juggernaut. I didn't really know how I was going to handle this. At first I thought I would shoot the explosive barrels as he passed them, but they didn't really do too much damage. Eventually, I came up with this awesome tactic of shooting him twice and then playing Ring Around the Rosie with his dumb ass. I call it the run in circles while you shoot the idiot move. This man was a complete bullet sponge, but after some time, I was able to take him down. I then came to the hardest part of the whole run. Now I know what you're thinking, how could anything be worse than a juggernaut? Well, you can beat a dumb jugger bitch if you're patient, but how can you beat 20 idiots shooting at you from all angles while you're on a no damage run? This was absolutely mind-numbing. There was so much cover for the enemy to hide behind and gun me down. They had left, right, up, and down. Everywhere you could look, there was a dickhead with a gun pointed at me. I wasn't able to take this slowly like the juggernaut fight. I had to memorize where every single guy was and kill them before they got to a certain area. If I didn't do that, then surely I would get one random bullet straight to my nipple from some random place, and then I would have to go back to my last goddamn checkpoint. And every time I died, it just made me more and more furious. But after a long ass time, I was able to take every single one of them down. Oh my god. I then planted the explosives on the gas tubes. Now, as the last part of the game, I was Farah, and I had to take down Barkov. I stabbed that man so many times, until my heart was quite content. It was really fun, and a little crazy, not gonna lie to you. And before he had the chance to say anything, I kicked him off the helicopter, and just like that, I beat Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 without taking any damage. I hope you guys enjoyed the video as much as I did making it. It definitely required a lot of patience and was pretty hard at some times, but it was overall pretty fun. But if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you disliked it, then dislike it. If you want to see more content like this, then go ahead and subscribe. But without further ado, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.